the meeting is hush-hush to the rest of the world, but in North Korea, it's clear the Russian President Vladimir Putin will be visiting well within 24 hours. The streets of the capital of North Korea, Pyongyang, are already sporting Russian flags. There are huge posters and portraits of President Vladimir Putin. Mr. Putin is on his way to North Korea to meet leader Kim Jong-un. Is expected to spend 2 days in the country, where discussions would be held on various topics such as the economy, energy, agriculture, trade, international relations, and defense security. He's also expected to touch down in Vietnam after. This marks his second trip to the country. He first visited North Korea in September of 2000. Meanwhile, the United States and South Korea are closely monitoring details of the trip. They've accused North Korea of supplying Russia with artillery and other equipment, a claim both parties have denied, but vowed to strengthen the military ties. Meanwhile, the United States is still reacting to Russian President Vladimir Putin's criteria for a peace proposal in Ukraine. U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller, who denounced the move, said it defies the United Nations Charter and defies basic morality. Now, on Friday, Mr. Putin said his country will be ready for peace talks only if Ukraine annuls its plans to join NATO and only if Ukrainian troops withdraw from the regions of Kherson, Donetsk, Luhansk, and Zaporizhia.
In Moscow, President Putin had a different message. Another maximalist statement that called on Ukraine to surrender even more of its sovereign territory than what Russia currently occupies before negotiations could even begin. President Putin demanded Ukraine agree to disarm so that it is vulnerable to future aggression from Russia. No responsible nation can say that this is a reasonable basis for peace. It defies the UN Charter, it defies basic morality, it defies basic common sense. It is clear Russia is unprepared for any serious, good faith discussions. Russia's actions make this especially clear as it continues its bombing campaigns against Ukraine's critical infrastructure, threatens ships in the Black Sea, and forcibly relocates tens of thousands of Ukrainian children. It's not just a question of humanitarian pauses, it's the question of how much aid gets delivered. The pause ultimately is only a means to an end. The humanitarian pause is to ensure that, number one, aid can get delivered where it needs to go, and then number two, relief workers have certainty that they can carry out their jobs without being hit by an airstrike or by tank fire or by any other kind of ordinance. So it's important that Israel has put this step in place, and we'll watch how it's implemented. And if there are changes that need to be made, we of course won't hesitate to make that clear. We have seen him get incredibly desperate over the past few months and look to Iran to rebolster the military military equipment that he has lost in Ukraine, to look to North Korea to rearm himself. And so I'm quite certain that that is what he's up to. All I can say is that we will continue to work with our allies and partners to support Ukraine. Certainly we have a concern about that. We are going to attempt to attend the trial. Don't know if that will be possible. We have continued to have consular access to Evan at times.
North Korea is ready for President Vladimir Putin's visit to the country, happening hopefully within the next 24 hours. Portraits and posters of the Russian president are already all over the capital, Pyongyang. Mr. Putin, who's on his way to North Korea to meet the North Korean leader, is expected to spend 2 days in the country. He'll be discussing various topics such as economy, energy, agriculture, trade, international relations, and defense security. The VOA's Miroslava Gongadze, who's the Europe Bureau Chief, is in Warsaw, Poland. Miroslava, great to see you. And there's so much speculation over the visit by the Russian president to North Korea, but I feel that the real problem is a concern over the nature of the visit and what will be discussed. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely. And unfortunately, we don't have much information about what exactly to be discussed. We definitely know that Russia is waging a hybrid war against the West, and diplomacy is a part of this hybrid war. So we can see here definitely that Putin is trying to show that he's still present in the world stage, specifically after the peace summit that we have witnessed during the weekend, where the over 80 countries signed for principles how the Ukraine war is supposed to end and possible peace negotiations. So President Putin is going there. He'll be there until 19, and it's very important to say that this is the first visit after 24 years of break. President Putin visited North Korea when he was just elected, become a president 2 months after, and this is the first time when he's visiting after that long period of time. We know as well that American officials confirmed that North Korea is supplying weapons to Russia against its war in Ukraine, and Russia is desperate of getting that ammunition. So it's a mutual agreement, a mutual interest. North Korea is interested to actually as well. It's a pariah state, and they want it to be shown with somebody more powerful than them. Studio.
Yes, they're both, birds of the same feather, aren't they? They both seem to have the same ideology and the same strategy in approaching the rest of the world. Now, this visit could be seen as Putin's response to the Ukraine Peace Summit that you rightly mentioned, the one that happened in Switzerland over the weekend. But it's also been speculated that the Russian president was receiving help from North Korea with the war in Ukraine. Does this visit by Putin seal that speculation for the rest of the world, especially for Western leaders who are closely watching the outcomes of this visit?
President Putin, as I said, is desperate for more weapons, and North Korea have a lot, these Soviet-style weapons, and they can provide. What North Korea is interested in technology, military technology, and it's not we are not clear what Russia can provide as a military technology, and would they be willing to do that? But it's a kind of mutual support, I would say. And for the Western leaders, obviously, we have to watch the military exercise that Russia is having right now in the Korean Peninsula. So this is kind of show of threats as well for the Korean Peninsula. And as we know, Japan, United States, and South Korea already agreed to have their own military exercise, to be prepared for any possible aggression from North Korea or from Russia.
Now I'm wondering, how North Korea could spin this around to be all about them. They're already a pariah state, as you mentioned earlier. Much of their military aid and all of the economy is geared towards military development, weapons, amassing weapons of mass destruction, hoping someday to eventually, target South Korea and the United States. We've seen them, launch different missiles over the years. Just wondering, how exactly they could leverage on this visit by the Russian president so that, they could have a softer approach to the rest of the world.
Obviously, North Korea needs everything. They need humanitarian supplies, they need food, they need, as I said, military technology, because obviously they are trying to develop the nuclear capabilities. And as we know, last year when the North Korean leader visited Russia in September, they visited some of the military facilities in Russia, and President Putin was showing them what they can do and capable to do. So there are speculations that Russia could help North Korea to send their own satellite to space. However, it's hard to say right now who needs this visit more, North Korea or Russia. It looks like at this stage both countries actually desperate for different things, but both want something from each other.
Right, so Miroslava, Ukrainian allies are also announcing a freezing of Russian assets because of the war in Ukraine, but we've also seen in the past that sanctions have nothing on the Russian population as well as the Russian government. So how hopeful are they that this will have any impact whatsoever?
With this frozen Russian money, it's very important for Ukraine and for the West to have this access, because basically Russia, as Western leaders say, Russia has to pay for this war that they waged against Ukraine. In terms of sanctions, this latest set of sanctions that United States imposed on Russia actually had an effect. And their stock market basically collapsed and they cannot trade. So they do need access to other markets. And as we know well, they have India, they have China that are helping them for trade and get those capital. However, as more Russia is waging this war, as more sanctions are tightening, obviously, Soviet Union. I was born in Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union were able to live without the world market, and survive. However, the life of ordinary Russians will be impacted sooner or later, and specifically with all this military economy that Putin is building right now in Russia, Russian people will feel it more and more. Would it impact their support for the war? It's hard to say, but squeezing Russian economy is one of the way to put Putin at the negotiation table.
Miroslava, appreciate your reporting on this issue. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much.